3-9, day 2, linear functions. Let's concentrate on this word right here, linear. Root word, line. What should that trigger? Y equals mx plus b. So we're not letting go of y equals mx plus b, but now we're going to have somewhat of what you might call life applications to your slope-intercept form. This is called a linear function or a linear equation. So let's just look at the instructions. Assume that each situation can be described by a linear function. So that's what we're going to do. So, example 1, before we even look at these questions, we're going to try to come up with one of these for this information. If we just read it, a car purchased from a used car lot for $3,600 loses $600 in value each year. So basically it's like, I'm going to say that is X. So X is years. So if we dig in a little bit, we know the car's value, I'm just building an equation, is $3,600, but it loses $600 every year. So we know that X represents year, number of years. So if it's 1 year, it lost $600. 2 years, it loses $1,200. Whatever you plug in here makes sense, right? But we're going to set that equal to y. Now this isn't in traditional y equals mx plus b, but if we just flip these in our mind, we would or just literally go negative 600x plus 3,600. See, now we have a typical y equals mx plus b, but that's the same thing as this. It's just rearranged. So we're going to use this one. And then the question says, find the blue book value. By the way, kbb.com. I'm not making money off of this, but if you go there and you can research the vehicle that you're driving to find out what its value is. Is this little cord bothering you? Me too. All right, let me get rid of that. So what that means is the value. Find the value of the car after 18 months. Well, what's 18 months? That's 1.5 years. So we're going to let X equal 1.5 years, and we're going to stick it right here or here. I'll just do this one. So the value, Y, see, don't forget, that's the car's value after time. That's going to help us understand the next question. That's why I'm making a big deal of it. Equals 3,600, that's how much it was worth initially, 600 times 1.5. All right, so that's just 3,600 minus 600 times 1.5 is 900. And so I would get y equals 2,700. So after 1.5 years, the car is now worth 2,700. Don't forget this, X is years, so X is time. As we go into this question, it says when. In other words, find X, because that's what represents time. When will the blue book value, don't get too hung up on blue book, when will the value of the car be 2,600? So what they're saying is, let Y equal 2,600. Remember, Y ended up equaling 2,700, and Y is the car's value after time. So what we're doing is we're going to say, all right, Y equals, if you want to go with mx plus b, see, this is different. We're finding x, which is time. We're going to subtract 3,600, and so we get negative 1,000 equals negative 600x. These would cancel. Divide by negative 600, gone. Divide by negative 600. Now, these two negatives will make a positive. I'm just going to take those zeros off, and I'd be left with 10/6. 10/6 what? Well, that equals x. What's x? Number of years. Keep this in mind. So that reduces to 5/3, which reduces to 1 2/3 of a year. So I could answer it after 1 2/3 of a year. But another way of thinking of it, I know I'm running out of space, would be 1 year And 2/3 of 12 months would be 8 months. Okay? 8 months. Which makes sense, because if you think about it, after a year and a half, it's down to 2,700. A year and a half is 1 year, 6 months. So after a year, 8 months, it'll be worth a little less. Just makes sense. Okay? Now things are going to get a little different. We're going to shift gears. Now I'm going to hit pause because I think if I go get highlighters, it will help. All right, I'm back. So this is saying at noon, I'm going to highlight that, a pump started emptying an oil storage tank at a constant rate. Now that's a little hint, which is just your slope there, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But here's the meat and potatoes. At 1 p.m., there were 2,040 barrels left in the tank. Your brain has to connect these and say, oh, that's 1 hour after it started pumping this oil. So the first thing I want you to notice is after 1 hour, there was 2,040 barrels left in the tank. Now watch this. So we're going to let this be X. We're going to let this be Y. In other words, f of X equals 2,040. In other words, after 1 hour, there's 2,040 barrels. See, this says Y equals 2,040. But then there's another sentence that says at 3 p.m. there was 1,320 barrels left. Well, don't forget, it started at noon. So at 3, how many hours have gone by? Well, that's 3 hours. There were 1,320 barrels left. And I hope this is connecting now to yesterday's lesson. This one did not really connect to yesterday's lesson. This one is. And the next two will be just like this. So I'm going to go, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is build, well, I guess this is the first thing I did, is I made a situation where I say, okay, I see what I need to do with this. I'm going to call this x1, y1, x2, y2, and then the second thing I'm going to do is build an equation. Well, that's what we've been doing quite a bit this year, actually. So the first thing I need to do is find slope. So that's y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So this turns into, come on brain, 68720 negative over 2, which is negative 360. Okay? So the next thing I need to do is find b. Well, I'm going to take this, and I don't know if you heard the door knock, but I had to help a student there, so we're back. So I found my slope. I'm going to pick these values to find my y-intercept. So there's my y equals mx plus b. Well, this is negative 360, so I'm going to add 360, so I get 2,400 equals b. So here's my b, here's my m. I got to put those together. Y equals mx plus b. Now I'm going to ask myself, what's the question? Now I really want you guys to pay attention here because this says at what time. See, your brain needs to really, really think through this. What was x? What was x? 1 hour, 3 hours. This is time. What was y? That's the amount of barrels left. So this is saying at what time. It's saying find x. Why is that such a big deal? Because it says, will there be 240 barrels? Well, number of barrels was always our y, so this is saying let y equal 240. So I'm going to put this right here, and I'm going to go 240 equals negative 360x plus 2,400. I'm going to subtract 2,400, and then I'm going to subtract this, so I get negative 2160 equals negative 360x. And if I divide by negative 360 and divide by negative 360, That actually, if I do it with my calculator, turns out to 6. Now don't lose track of what you're finding. You found x. X equals 6. Be careful. The problem says at what time. So your brain needs to connect this information to the whole story problem. Notice this whole thing started at noon. So if it takes 6 hours, because that's what you found, what time would it be 6 hours after noon? Well, that would be 6 p.m. All right. Now it's just a coincidence that this and this match, because if this would have started at 1 o'clock, my answer would have been 7. All right, so don't think that just because this is 6, this has to be 6. No, no, no. It just ended up being that way. All right, so now look for the repetition here. It gets a little easier on the second one, I think. It says it costs $1,600 to manufacture 14 DVD players. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to go, okay, 14 DVD players equals $1,600. And then I'm going to go $2,400 to make 30 DVD players. And there's step 1. I got my information in this language. That helps me identify x1, y1, x2, y2. And now I'm going to find the equation. I'm going to find the slope first. So slope is y sub 1 minus y sub 2 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So that's 800 all over 16, which ends up being 50. Don't forget, that's my slope. So I'm going to take this information, and I'm going to go y equals mx plus b. Now this is 700. I know that. Just look at it. Use your calculator. So I'm going to subtract 700, subtract 700. So I get 900 equals b. Now that I have my m and my b, I have my equation. Y equals mx plus b. Now pay attention to what you did. X represented the number of DVDs. Y represented the cost. Now you can read the question. At this rate, what would the cost? See, now what is that? That's saying find Y of manufacturing 60 DVD players. What's that saying? Saying let X equal 60 and use this formula. So Y equals 50 times 60 plus 900. Well, that's 3,000 plus 900, so that's 3,900 bucks to make 60 DVDs. All right, last one. I've got about 2 minutes. So it starts out by saying a load of 6 kilograms stretches the spring to 67 centimeters. So I know right away that 6, there's my weight, so I know X is going to be my weight, and 67 is the length of this coil spring. Then I look down the road, 16 kilograms stretches it further to 92 centimeters. So now I have 16, 92. So there's x1, y1, there's x2, y2. I'm going to find the slope. I'm going to move a little faster just so I don't run out of time. And so this would be 25 all over 10, which reduces to 5 halves. That's my slope. I'm going to take this point, and I'm going to go y equals mx plus b using this point. And then 2 goes into 6 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15. So I'm going to subtract 15, and I get 52 equals b. Here's my m, here's my b. Fuse them together. And now I got to be able to read the question because this gets a little challenging. It says, find the natural unstretched length of the spring. Well, the length represents my y. So it's saying find y if it's the natural unstretched length. So you have to read into that, and you have to say, hey, that means the weight, or x, equals 0, and that's what I'm going to put right here. So if I put that in there, I get 5 halves times 0 plus 52, Well, that disappears, so y equals 52, and that's the original length of this coil. That's it. I snuck it in.